This episode is brought to you by DirecTV Stream. DirecTV Stream is your home for baseball. With the most regional sports networks of any streaming TV provider, DirecTV Stream gives you the most local baseball games. And that means more doubleheaders, triple plays, and no-hitters from your local team. Watch this season's action on DirecTV Stream. Get the best of live TV and on-demand at directtv.com/baseball. Regional sports networks are available with choice package or higher and may vary by zip code and package. Not available in all areas. Compatible device required.
Empire.
Hello and welcome to my podcast. Do me a favor and subscribe to the John Kahn Report wherever you get your podcasts. And you can subscribe to us on YouTube, subscribe, like, at Empire Media. That's AMPIRE. It would be much appreciated. Today, I'm joined by former Washington tight end Logan Paulson for another two-part interview. On this episode, we talk about receiver Terry McLaurin and the money. What it says about McLaurin that he's actually an Ashburn for reporting for these workouts, even if he's not going to participate on the field, and what it means for Chase Young to be working out here as well. Why these are important through Logan's eyes, but does it matter that players show up? Logan will explain, and he'll tell you why teammates didn't have a problem with Deshaun Jackson when he didn't show up. It runs counter to his image. It's also something I heard at the same time, so I knew that guys didn't have a problem with that. Finally, I start off by talking about Logan's soccer career. Yep. I'm also joined by former NFL scout Tyler Roman as we take a look deeper into the draft and he picks out some possible late round gems. You can follow Logan on Instagram at Logan_Paulsen82, and you can check out his mock draft currently up on the Commander's website. Put a lot of work into that, folks. You can follow Tyler on Twitter at NFL Scout 21, and you can read my work on ESPN.com. I have a story up now about why safety Kyle Hamilton makes sense for Washington. Of course, I could write the same article about Drake London, Garrett Wilson, and Chris Olave. And London, I do believe, would be their top receiver on the board. Then I believe it would be Olave. But really what makes the most sense to me is if they can convince another team to move up and make a trade. Get some more picks. I keep saying this, rounds 2 through 4. The draft has a lot of depth, and that's a good spot to be. Some of that depends on what happens to the quarterbacks. If they go top 10, does somebody fall out of the top 10 that you weren't expecting, and now they're there at 11? If you love the guy, you take the guy, and you don't worry about the trade. Because if you really, really like a guy, you can't assume that you can trade back and still get him. So if you trade back, you better have a couple guys in mind. They do like a few receivers in the first round. You can throw Jahan Dotson from Penn State under the list. And there are a few safeties they like after this point as well. Plus, I know a few of them. Plus, I know there's some O-linemen in the first round that they like. Though in this range, I'm not quite sure who that would be. I wouldn't rule it out. I just don't know which one. I know offensive tackle Luka Decky visited here. My guess is that was as much about gathering medical information because there will be questions about his knee. So I don't know that he's the guy that they'd be interested in. I do think that was a lot about collecting medical information. We'll see. And that's one area we haven't talked a lot about, meaning the O-line, though Logan and I do discuss it because I'm all for adding another starter or another starter level player up front. I would be surprised if they didn't add somebody up front. But keep in mind, there's going to be another wave of acquisitions after the draft, as there were last year when they acquired Eric Flowers and Charles Leno. So think about that. 40% of their offensive line was acquired after the draft. Right now, if I drew up the list of wants and needs, it'd be receiver, safety, line, O-line, linebacker, running back. I also think another tight end and more D-line depth. And you know what? Let's throw a corner in there. I believe that's pretty much everything. But what I do know is you want to address a lot of these. Let me back up for the linebackers. There are definitely linebackers they like after the first round. So all my talk, what I've been telling you about the Buffalo nickel, they still want to add somebody at linebacker. I just think it's the level of importance when you're looking at pick number 11. What's the value you're getting there? But I do know they'd still like to add somebody at that position. The draft, when used properly, is not the tool to fill every hole. It's to add talent that can be developed. You're going to get some high-end guys, of course, but then really it's about developing the guys, especially later in the draft. You draft a linebacker in the sixth round, it's wrong to assume that it fills a hole right now, since picks in that round typically don't end up as starters, certainly not in year one. Yes, it happens. It's rare. Find players that you think you can develop. That's why I'd look for some D linemen later in the draft, like they did last year with William Bradley King and Shaka Toney. This is they would like to have seen Toney and Bradley King develop more, so it wouldn't shock me if they add more competition for those two. I think they felt like there was a plateauing of what those guys did last year. It's a deep draft for this spot. So, and I think when you're looking at what this team's going to have in the next few years along the D line, as far as money goes, you want to get some young guys in there in case something goes wrong with with the ability to keep guys, or you just decide that you can't pay 4 linemen that much money. So we'll see. Before I get to Logan, one word on the investigations. If you haven't read the stories from Monday, go back and do so. It's Washington's rebuttal or letter, its own letter to the FTC, basically trying to rebut what Congress sent to the FTC from using Jason Friedman, the former ticket office employee, the senior VP over there. They rebutted some charges, showing some emails that they say prove, for example, that they weren't diverting money from a 2014 Redskins game to the Navy Notre Dame game that same year. Of the 105 pages they sent to the FTC, a number were signed affidavits. I know some of the committee felt like they merely poked holes in some arguments, but did not outright refute them. That's their interpretation. I also know that they noted that Stephen Choi, the former CFO, whose emails were part of the documents, was not among those who signed an affidavit. Now, I haven't seen his name on either side, and I don't know why. I'm assuming he's talked to the committee. I have no clue what he told them. I just know that they haven't named him, and neither has the other side, or at least nothing signed in public. I have reached out to him, have yet to hear back. I do hope to have someone who has experience with the FTC on the podcast Friday to help make sense of this. I don't know if that's going to happen. I'm trying to get that. I have talked to people from the FTC, but it's a matter of getting them to be on the record or people who used to work there. One person I talked to is a conflict of interest, so he can't go on. But go and read my story from Monday on the situation. As I told you, it's a long way from being over. I know there's a feeling on the Republican side that the FTC won't pursue this. I know when talking to some former FTC employees, again last week, they weren't sure if they would. They weren't sure if the FTC would do this, and that was before Washington sent its letter. So we'll see. The FTC doesn't announce what it's investigating, and it still could be a local attorney general, whether in Maryland, D.C., or Virginia, who takes it on. But the committee now has washed its hands. The congressional committee has washed its hands of the financial impropriety accusations. That's what they did by sending it to the FTC. So they're going to resume the business back to what they wanted to do first, which was their own investigation into the workplace culture. It's not going away anytime soon, folks. So now you're caught up. After this break, let's get back to football. So I'm going to be joined by former tight end Logan Paulsen, the other sport he nearly went to college for, and why he's encouraged by seeing Chase Young out in Ashburn. Welcome back. Now here's my conversation with former Washington tight end Logan Paulsen. Again, you can check out his mock draft on the Commander's website up now. Logan, always a pleasure to bring you on, but I did have to tell you, okay, so this is going to be another two-parter, and we're going to talk about team stuff first, and we'll talk about the draft in the second episode, and your mock draft that you had that is now out, and people can go and they can rip you for it because it's like, what are you thinking here? That's what's supposed to happen with mocks, right? That's just part of the territory. But I always know it's informed one. But in Googling, I wanted to find out about your draft experience. So what it led me to is going back even further, your induction into the Chaminade High School Hall of Fame, where you were in high school, where I found out that you were a star soccer player.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, I was a star soccer player. I had a scholarship to play soccer at like a local college out there, but I already committed to UCLA. I also ran track. I ran like the 300 hurdles, the 4x4, and the 110 hurdles, and I was pretty competitive at the 300 hurdles. My 4x4 splits were like in the 50-second range, which is solid for high school. Like I used to be, I think people see me now and they're like, oh man, you're just kind of this big, gorilla. And, I used to have some athleticism to me back in the day. But not quite so much anymore. So
with the soccer though, you had that's a competitive area too. Like you had to have been pretty good. Was that a serious thing? Like, did you seriously consider going that route or?
Yeah, I did. Like when I got into high school, like I was a soccer player first and I didn't know anything about football. I'd never played tackle football. And my dad honestly had signed me up so I would have friends when I went into high school because he thought it was like a more normal kind of high school sport. And so, I did the football thing. And I wasn't very good at it. I didn't really understand the physicality element of it. But I think the soccer was really beneficial for me in terms of understanding space, and understanding zones, and understanding angles. Because a lot of kids had a really hard time, especially in high school sports, of understanding pursuit angles. And that was all stuff that came very natural to me. And then sitting in zones, that's a big part of soccer. And as I got bigger and stronger, my production got better on football. And I don't want to say I grew out of soccer because I think my senior year I was about 215, 220 pounds, 6'4", 6'5"-ish. So I could have played soccer, but definitely my body was kind of transitioning more into that kind of more robust physical sport of football.
See, I can just picture you now just running through these little tiny soccer players. You must have had because, obviously soccer players are kind of known for their flops. It must have caused a lot of flops.
Yeah, my dad grew up playing hockey and played hockey in college at MIT and then BU. So, very physical sport hockey. And he played back in the day with no helmets and no mouth guards and, that kind of stuff. And so he was very adamant to me about, make sure if I ever see you flop, we're going to take you out of the sport. And and so I never flopped, but I was a big kid and guys would come barreling into me and they'd fall down and I'd get the yellow and it was this big thing and all the parents on the sideline would talk in hushed whispers when I'd come on the field because everyone thought I was a goon, and I wasn't the most skilled soccer player, but I was very physical and I was big and I could run and I was very well conditioned and just lended itself to me being very productive at the high school level in soccer.
So, and this is a little transition to Samus Reyes.
Yep.
Because you talk about understanding angles and zones and all that. He obviously was a basketball player. I know you transition at a different level, but there's got to be an understanding first to allow you to transition whatever level. Did your experience, because you've worked with him, would you talk to him about angles and, zones and maybe translating from one sport to another and how to translate that?
You're always trying to draw connections and parallels because you're trying to just find ways to speak the same language. I lived with a guy when I was in Atlanta on the team there who played rugby, so you're always trying to kind of verbalize some connection to something that they know. And it makes it easier when the sport has some type of connection. Everyone thinks, rugby and, football are very similar, but they're actually very dissimilar. Rugby is probably more similar to soccer, so with basketball, there are some similarities in terms of how you want to, kind of protect the ball, attack the ball with your hands. You do box out, you have different ways of playing defense. And I find that defense, when talking basketball specifically, translates really well to football, even in blocking, because you understand how thick you need to be on the man, in terms of playing defense. You can't be kind of on a half a man. And it's the same thing with blocking. You got to kind of take a full big chunk of the guy. Your screws have to be on his screws. And I find that stuff is helpful to kind of internalize just position. And obviously you need to get into the more technical nuance of hand placement, foot placement, how to generate power from the ground, all those things. But as long as you have some kind of starting point from your other sport, at a high level, he played basketball at a very high level in Chile. And he played college basketball here. That is at least it helps kind of move the process along.
Have you could you see him understanding some of the what you're trying to get across just because you could translate like that, or he could?
Yeah, absolutely. And he, obviously a lot of credit has to go to him because these guys are tremendous athletes, and they're tremendous athletes for a reason. And they're kinesthetic learners. Usually they learn in a very physical way. So the more time he would spend with the task and the more times we would communicate, when you're coaching good athletes, they pick up stuff very quickly. I coach high school football. I do a lot of personal training, and the more athletic the kid, the easier those adaptations come. And so Samis is one of the best athletes in the entire world. And so obviously that transition is not super overwhelming for him.
They obviously could use another tight end here. Where do you think he can develop? How much more can he develop this year as far as taken a step to get to where he could be a reliable third, or do you still look at him and say it's going to take another year or so because it is really, really, really hard?
Yeah, so I think the thing with him, and I think you said like reliable third, I think he's in that role right now. I think you have a third guy who can block well. And I thought his transition would go pass game to run game, but it's kind of gone the other way. It's gone run game to pass game. And so I think as he gets more comfortable with pass concepts and understanding, I think he's going to be more productive in the pass game. But I think he's shown a really nice physicality. And I think that's really hard to teach. And I think as long as he has a coach that can kind of push him technically, he's going to develop really quickly. Because if you watch him from preseason game 1 of last year to the last game of him on the team, like at least he looks like he knows what's going on. And that's a huge element. He's going to have this whole offseason to get better. I think he can be, he's not going to be like the best tight end in the NFL or anything like that, but he's going to be a guy who can contribute on special teams, contribute in specific situations, and kind of flush out a role like at a high level. And it's always nice to have a guy with that athletic surplus in one of those backup roles, you know what I mean? Because he's just going to grow and get better. And it's nice because he's not kind of redshirting this year. He's going to be able to contribute while he's still growing at the position.
Well, he also there were a couple of plays he had on special teams late in the year where I just remember him drilling somebody along the sidelines. How much, but when a guy's trying to get comfortable, how much can that experience just on special teams help him gain a different comfort level that can translate then to offense eventually?
Yeah, I think special teams is a funny spot because it takes the most probably physical courage, but the least like intellectual aptitude. And so what I mean by that, it's like an area where you're just big, strong, and fast. And if you're not afraid to hit somebody, you're going to be successful. And so you're stripping back kind of all the raw technique that's required to play football at a high level and saying, hey, block this person, go cover this kick, or just run down, defeat this block. And that's just being an athlete. That's being big. That's being physical. So it kind of lets them play in these like very high velocity situations, these high intensity situations. And I think they kind of say like, it's not too physical for me. I can do these plays. I can contribute here. And I think that's all very important for the development of an athlete in terms of confidence and kind of knowing that you can play at a high level. Like when I was a rookie here, I played a lot on punt return and punt and all these different special teams. And it just gets you in the game a little bit more, right? You kind of hear the calls, you understand the speed with which guys are playing. I think that's a big element. Special teams tends to be a little bit more ticked up in terms of speed of play. And so when you're out there and then you get on offense or defense, you're like, oh, this is a little bit more tempered. It's slightly different, but it's a little bit different. And so just getting exposed to that speed and getting comfortable at that speed, it helps you digest and helps you develop more confidence on offense or defense, whatever you're doing. And
I know they're hoping that it translates for De'Ami Brown too, because he did some gunner stuff. You know, in your experience with the receivers, would it be the same for him or different? Or, you know, I know there's always talking about getting off the line and you have to be more physical, but it did seem like he developed a little more physically playing that role.
I think, for me, one of my big points, you mentioned the mock draft, one of my big points of evaluation in the receivers is, do they play special teams and what do they do on special teams? Because usually receivers are kind of, this is a big generalization because there's obviously exception to every single rule, but they're kind of prima donnas. They're not super tough. They're not super physical. And one of the things about transitioning the NFL, it's one of the reasons like I'm kind of down on Chris Olave as I wonder about his physicality, is that everyone's very physical at the NFL level. So for De'Ami to go out and play gunner for an NFL team, go against those double teams, go against those double vices where you just have to literally kind of fight for your life. If you've never seen a vicious vice on a gunner, like you have not seen like what the NFL is about. Those guys are ruthless out there. And so when you get a guy who has the physical traits to get it done and also the physical courage to get it done, I think that lends itself to a guy who can be a pretty solid football player offensively. And I think it kind of conditions them to the physical elements of playing offense in the NFL against these high-level cornerbacks. So I do think, Ron has mentioned that a whole bunch of times. Everyone in the building mentions how he performed on special teams, and I understand why that's important in terms of development. Now, that doesn't mean he's going to be the number 2 this year, right? But it means he's going to be a guy who can contribute to this team, whether it's the 3, the 4, guy with some special teams ability and a guy with a nice physicality. And that's a big deal from a 3rd-round pick who took a little bit of time to get going last year.
Definitely took some time. And I think there's some things that there's my phone. I think there's some things he can do. He can certainly help a lot more than he did last year. Looking at, like, they obviously reported to practice or workouts this week. I keep saying workouts this week. How big a deal is it that Chase, there was a lot of talk about Chase Young not being there last year. How big a deal is it for him to be there?
I think it's a huge deal. I mean, I'm old school in this regard. Like I was a guy, and you know this, John, like I never missed anything. I never had the luxury of missing anything. And there are guys who have the luxury. You know, I think we talked about Deshaun Jackson before the show started and how, you know, certain guys can miss and they're okay. But, you know, in terms of like getting comfortable with the scheme, like this is part of that kind of integration process into the offense, right? They're going to start reviewing clips. They're going to start reviewing techniques. They'll review some film from last year. It is a workout session, but they do have like an hour and a half of meetings. And so in those meetings, like that's time where you kind of reacclimate yourself with the verbiage of the offense, the different techniques coaches wants, the language, the defense or the offense is communicating it. And it's this nice kind of integration period into the stuff, which is phase 2 next week, where you get on the field for individual work. And then phase 3, which is more practice-based stuff. And then in the practice-based stuff, I think that's extremely advantageous because you're seeing NFL rushers. Like when I train NFL defensive ends, I'm out there trying to give them pass rush looks. It's much more advantageous for them to put a helmet on, put the shoulder pads on, do some one-on-ones, do some reps, feel the length, feel the physicality of those players, even if it's at 80%, just to kind of get themselves ready for training camp. So again, like I'm old school in that regard, but I do think you're never going to get better practice than going against NFL talent. And so phase 3, I think that's a big deal, but also just hearing the language at a bare minimum. And then not to mention his rehab, being involved with the team, being around the team for the rehab process. They know where he's at. They know what he's capable of. They're not going to rush him back as if, you know, like sometimes when they're at outside facilities, these guys, the communication gets a little bit dicey and they don't know where the player's at. Here, they know exactly what's going on. They can handle his rehab better. And I just think it's probably better for everybody.
You brought up Deshaun. Do guys care, or how much do guys care when others miss? You know, and it doesn't depend on who it is and what they do on Sundays.
Like you said, it depends on the guy, right? There are certain guys, like Deshaun's a perfect example. Like he would never come to OTAs, anything that was non-mandatory. But when he came here, he never made any mental mistakes, and he was always kind of that home run, big play threat. And so as much as it kind of got in my craw as a player, like a guy, I had to do everything to be in the NFL. Like I understood that his physical talent allowed him to do things that I could not get away with, right? And if Deshaun came in and was like messing stuff up, you know, running the wrong route, you know, not in good shape, kind of nursing an injury or something, I think that would be more concerning. But he always came in ready to go. And when you have that level of talent and that level of kind of, you know, clout within the organization, I think that's okay. And I know a lot of people, a lot of fans don't understand that, but in the context of an NFL locker room, I think that is something that culturally is kind of locker room dependent and guy dependent. And, you know, Mike Shannon used to say this all the time. Shannon Sharp never went to OTAs, but he was always in perfect shape and he knew the offense when it came time to execute. So as long as you do those things and as long as you're ready to perform, like performance is the ultimate judge, and people need different things to perform. And if they don't need that and they're performing at a high level, I understand that.
With Deshaun kind of defined the word chill, don't you think?
You know, it's interesting with Deshaun though. Like I had a conversation with coaches, you know, when he was here, and I was always kind of like, man, Deshaun this, Deshaun that, because we're very different in terms of our approach and preparation. And I had a coach tell me that, you know, Deshaun, if Deshaun like would pretend to sleep in meetings or whatever, but he would say like, Deshaun never gets a question wrong when you ask him. He never has a misalignment or misassignment. So I don't know if he just wanted to kind of purvey this kind of chill or relax. Or
I think he likes to give off that kind of demeanor and attitude.
Aloof demeanor, but like for all of his stuff, like he wouldn't be in the NFL if he wasn't an outstanding pro on the field and in practice, in games. He understood what was happening and he understood his opponent and he did some type of preparation. I don't know what it was. It wasn't the same as my preparation, but it got him ready to go. And so I think that's something to consider when kind of referencing Deshaun.
Well, he was one of my favorites to talk to because I always felt like I think he's a smart guy.
Right.
And I know that I know what he would do and I know that he would produce. And that's what you'd always hear. Well, he knows the offense and he doesn't make the mistakes. So what are you going to say? He comes in prepared, but I always enjoy dealing with Deshaun. I got a kick out of him. So I enjoy that. But the other guy, speaking of going at with receivers, Terry McLaurin, who we know he wants he's going to get an extension at some point or whatever happens. But I would be shocked if he doesn't get one here.
Yeah.
I've been shocked before, but he's showing up despite despite wanting that. Not going to participate on the field in those practices, but he'll be here. What does that mean?
So I appreciate that. He's in a tough situation with the team, and obviously people have different perspectives within the organization, I'm sure. And Terry has different perspective on how he should be treated in this situation. But I think that's a sign of a true professional, right? You're not getting exactly what you want from a financial standpoint. I think everyone in the building knows he deserves to be compensated. It's just about the level with which he should be compensated. And as a player and as a teammate, and seeing a captain who is going through this difficult kind of professional element of your career, for him to come and kind of show me that he's ready to go, that he's going to be in meetings. And to me, that's the most important part. Like, I know Terry's going to be in shape, but to be in meetings, to be studying, to be prepping, I respect the heck out of that, and I think a lot of guys in the locker room will too. I think, maybe some of the young guys won't understand the financial element, but definitely the kind of meat of that locker room will understand that he's actually going above and beyond. He's here when he doesn't have to be. He's kind of showing his displeasure by not participating in a non-mandatory event, but he's here. But he's here supporting us, participating in the classroom stuff, which is very important.
Obviously, you guys understand the business of football. When you got a guy like that on your roster, how important is it to keep that guy, knowing how others might perceive him? And and just like, how much do other guys pay attention to? Are they going to take care of Terry or not?
Well, I think the thing interesting with Terry, and I've talked to you about this before, is like, I don't know if he's like, I'm probably going to get roasted for this, but I don't know if he's like a top 10 or top 15 receiver. He's a very, very good football player. But I think the thing that really adds his value is the cultural fit here. I think he's a guy who is the truest understanding of what it means to be a professional, right? I've never heard one criticism levied against Terry. He just goes in and does his work. And that, to me, has value. And as a player who's played with guys like that, that has value. And I want to see guys like that rewarded, because and if I'm Ron, or if I'm the leadership of the Commanders organization, like, I want to reward that, because I want other players to look and say, oh, if I handle myself like Terry, I will also get rewarded. And, Terry has tremendous on-field production to support that as well. And that's why he should get paid. But I just think like there's a leadership culture element that Terry brings that is very, very valuable. And that's why, I would say kind of fight to keep him here. Obviously, if he wants to be the highest paid receiver in the NFL, like, no, that's just not reasonable. I don't think he wants that, from what I understand.
Yeah, I don't think he would. I don't think that's not what I've heard.
And so I'm not saying that, but, obviously, like, I think he should be compensated. And it's just about the value of that kind of extracurricular element, that non-concrete measurable, and what that means to the team. I think it's very valuable, especially with a guy who's had the production he's had. But we'll see what happens.
How much can a guy like that, how much will he help Carson Wentz, just because of, not just that he's a good receiver, but because of his approach as well?
Yeah, I think it's always nice, especially for quarterbacks, to have guys that you trust. Like, I just think back to the guys that were really good pros, say what you want about Jay Cutler, say what you want about Matt Ryan. They were guys who were good professionals. Deshaun Watson, again, lots of legal stuff there. But one of the things they valued most in their receivers was not the biggest, strongest, fastest playmaker. They valued trust, right? And one thing about Terry, when you watch him, is that you can trust him. You know that he's going to run the route the way it's supposed to be run. And that's something that quarterbacks value. They want to know where the player's going to be in the position he's going to be in. And I remember Matt Ryan, like, going nuts with guys, young guys, saying, like, if I can't trust you, I will tell them to cut you from the team, and like, that's a very impactful statement. I remember Jay Cutler yelling at the receivers in Chicago when I was there, because they weren't being very disciplined with their route stuff. They didn't know what to do. And I don't think any of those issues are there with Terry. And it just allows you to settle in and be confident. I think Carson Wentz, his relationship with Michael Pittman was well documented, and the trust level he had and how he'd always go to him. But that's because he knows and he believes in him. It's the same thing with Tom Brady. They all have their favorites, and it's not necessarily the most dynamic guy. It's the guy they trust. Aaron Rodgers and Alan Lazard, I think, is a fantastic example, right? He's always fighting for Alan Lazard, and Alan Lazard is not, the best receiver in the NFL. He does the little things really well, but he's also where Aaron wants him to be, and Aaron trusts him. And so I think having a guy like that for Carson, just kind of in the building already, knows the offense, handles himself well, is going to work with Carson to get better. I think just allows Carson to be at his best, and that's what you want.
On Carson, when you look at this receiving core, what do they need to add to make him more effective?
Yeah, I think when I look at Carson and his history, I think when he's got a lot of playmakers and guys who can catch the ball, that is a little off target with outstanding hands, I think that's something that makes him better. And I look at like Alshon Jeffrey, for example, during his time in Philadelphia, kind of this big body, slower receiver who Drake London gets comped to quite a bit. Logan Thomas is another one, outstanding hands, nice big physical frame, who can catch like off frame targets. So like stuff that's not right down the middle, right? Guys who can kind of move their hands around and catch the football. I think having a guy like that here, Terry's got a little bit of that to his game, right? So that's always important. Finding a guy like that could support him, I think is great. And also finding guys who can just get open in a big way is huge for him. He just needs playmakers to elevate him. And I think finding somebody like with excellent hands, because he's not the most accurate dude in the world. And what I mean by that is like, he's going to throw it to you and you're going to know it's to you, but like, is it going to be 2 feet to your left, 2 feet to your right, a foot above your head? And Pittman did a great job of maximizing those touches when he was in Indianapolis. And other guys like T.Y. Hilton, for example, he's a great football player, obviously, but not known for being able to catch balls at high velocities outside of his frame. So finding guys that can support that skill set or that deficiency in Carson's game, I think would be really important.
Last thing for this, the offensive line.
Yep.
Where are they at with that? Do they have a starting right guard on this roster? Do they need to add that still?
Yeah, so I was listening to something, I think Daniel Jeremiah was doing a mock draft, and they were talking about the Washington football team, and he said something that I totally agree with. They are graded very well by PFF, but when you watch them, there are some kind of deficiencies in terms of movement and creating moving the line of scrimmage in a way that helps the running back. And I think finding some way to upgrade that group and finding guys who are physical up front is going to be really, really important. Because they do a lot of inside zone. They've said that they want to get to more outside zone game, which I think would be great for them, kind of diversify the profile. But last year they ran, I felt like it was 60, 70% inside zone, and you need guys who are road graders and nasty, guys who are very technically sound. And so I think finding ways to upgrade that position, obviously with Schweitzer, that's in his DNA. What's his name? Norwell, the guy they just signed, is a little bit like that, very technical. I think he's going to upgrade just from like a tight zone run blocking standpoint. But I also think, if you got to move, like we've talked about this before, finding there's some massive human beings that play guard in this draft that can be really neat, really mean and upgrade this position. I think finding guys like that are going to be really, really beneficial. So yes, I think you need to upgrade the offensive line. I think you need to upgrade physicality. I think I need to upgrade just the mindset because of the style that they run. If they were running like a Kyle Shanahan offense, I'd say maybe not so much, because you can kind of game plan around that group. But here they're demanding that those guys be very physical people movers, and that's difficult. So you need to make sure you got the horses up front to get that done.
Logan, you're the best. Thanks a lot, man.
Thanks, Sean. Appreciate it.
After this break, I'll be back with former NFL scout Tyler Roman as we dive into some possible later round gems for Washington.
Guys, if you're looking for that extra confidence when it's time to have a little bit of fun, let me tell you about BlueChew.com. Blue Chew is a unique online service. It delivers the same active ingredients as Viagra and Cialis, but it comes in chewable form, and it's at a fraction of the cost. Blue Chew's tablets will help you combat all forms of ED. Plus, it's an online prescription service. No visits to the doctor's office, no awkward conversations, no waiting in line at the pharmacy, and it ships right to your door in a discreet package. The process is really simple. Sign up at BlueChew.com, consult with one of their licensed medical providers, and once you are approved, you'll receive your prescription within days, and the best part, all done online. Blue Chew's licensed medical providers are going to work with you to find the right ingredient and the strength for your personal subscription. Plus, their tablets are made in the United States. They prepare, they ship direct, and it's so much cheaper than going through a pharmacy. And here's a special deal for our listeners. Try Blue Chew free when you use our promo code KEIM, K-E-I-M, at checkout. Just pay $5 shipping. That's BlueChew.com, promo code KEIM, K-E-I-M, to receive your first month free, and we thank Blue Chew for being a sponsor of our show.
Welcome back. Now here's my conversation with former NFL scout Tyler Roman. Tyler, I always like talking about some of the late round guys because not all these home runs are hit in the first couple of rounds, right? So you get the Cam Curls in the 7th round, you get guys who make an impact later in the draft, and that's how I think teams can start to separate themselves. So that's what I want to talk about today. And so first of all, in general, we're going to go to a couple different positions, but in general, are there a couple guys that regardless of position, you say, I really like this guy late?
The guy that I really like is Damon Pierce from Florida. He's probably going to be day 3, 4th, 5th round, in my opinion. He's just a bruiser of a runner. He's 5'10", 218. I love that he has very low mileage on him. He's never had more than 106 carries at Florida. But he has 11 touchdowns last year, even with those 106 carries. So that's a touchdown every 10 carries. You got to like that averages. Antonio Gibson had a similar kind of touchdown average carry when he was in Memphis. So Damon Pierce is a guy I really like because I think they need a bruising running back. I think that's what they had in Peyton Barber, or that's what they liked in Peyton Barber. And if they get a guy like Pierce to pair with Gibson and McKissick, and even Jarrett Patterson, I think we really good, pick for Washington later in the draft.
That's what I was going to ask you, the fit here, because you're right. I think not that Peyton Barber was some awesome running back, but the role that he filled is one that they really didn't have somebody to fill that role. And so and plus, like, you're bringing in a guy like Kenneth Walker for a visit. He's a power guy. So you're looking at that. But so where you think Pierce will be available in the 4th, 5th round area? Where do you think?
Yeah, that's my opinion. Just because we look at the NFL today, they want guys that can do a little bit of everything, catch out of the backfield. That's not really Damon Pierce's forte. He's not a guy that really gets a lot of looks out of the backfield and in the pass game. So I think it's going to have him slide a little bit, put him more to, like I said, that 4th or 5th round range. And Washington has a 4th round pick, that first, in day 3. So that's someone I would look at. Like I said, I just love his running style. Even the Senior Bowl, he was seeking contact. He was trying to run over guys and, get every yard he could. And, like I said, just seeking that contact. That's kind of the runner you like. And especially since this team needs a bruiser, take some mileage off Antonio Gibson because he had a lot of carries last year towards the end of the year. And to keep him fresh and, for the longevity of his career, they need another guy to switch pace with him.
And that's the thing, that this does not indicate a disliking or displeasure with Antonio Gibson. This is about getting this guy productive and healthy for a longer time. Just like you look at Cleveland with Chubb and that running, and Kareem Hunt and the backs that they have there, it's all about keeping guys being able to go and maximizing their effectiveness for an extended period of time. Is there another running back? He's not there. They can't get him. Is another running back late that you like?
A couple would be Brian Robinson Jr. from Alabama. I mean, he's a bigger name from Bama. Obviously, he had a good senior year. He was a guy that really waited his turn in Alabama behind all the other guys that were the 5-star recruits. And Robinson, waited his turn until his 5th year. He had over 1,000 yards last year, double-digit touchdowns. He has less mileage on him, just like I said, because he didn't have many carries his first 3 years of his career. He's probably going to go day 3 as well, just because he's not really that big of out of the backfield threat. Another guy they can pair with as like a bruising type for Antonio Gibson. And lastly, a guy that you saw as an Ohio State fan going against him, Hassan Haskins from Michigan. Yeah. He's not a bruising type, but he's a guy that he was productive all 4 years in Michigan. He's a good back. Exactly. He can do a little bit of everything. I like him. He's another guy probably on day 3 that the team could look at if they're still trying to fill that role.
Another position would be, to me, because I don't think they go high on this one, but tight end. You need to get another tight end in here. And they do like those guys. Like when you look at the stable of tight ends they have, there's a lot of converted guys, except for John Bates. Ricky Seals-Jones last year was a converted guy, and obviously Logan Thomas. So who are some guys that may intrigue you at that spot later in the draft?
One would be Charlie Kohler from Iowa State. He's a guy I think is going to be an early day 3 pick. He's a huge dude, 6'6", 252. He's a big target with natural soft hands for a guy that size. Solid blocker for that size. I mean, he's the height of a tackle, really. So, and he knows how to use his body too when it comes to middle of the field target, shooting off defenders. So I like that about him. He was productive last year, 62 catches, 756 yards, and 6 touchdowns. So he's someone that I think they could look at. They need more depth at that position. We don't know when Logan's going to come back, obviously. And like you said, John Bates had a good rookie year, and who knows what Samus Reyes is going to be at this point. But and then another one, kind of a wild card because he didn't play much last year. It's James Mitchell from Virginia Tech. He was a guy that had a really good sophomore year. I guess junior year. Either way, he's a guy that was productive at Tech. He could do a little bit of everything. He returned punts for Tech. You could see he has some versatility back there, and he can play in the slot. He can play on the outside. They lined him up at receiver a lot. And again, he's going to go a little later just because he didn't play. He tore his ACL, I think, in week 2. So he's coming off of it. Obviously, he might not be ready week 1 or close to it, but he's a guy that has some potential if someone harnesses it and give him some opportunities. Because at Tech, he was a go-to target there in 2020.
How did he play as far as based on what you saw of him coming out? Was he better, same, about what you expected? What did you think?
He was better than I thought. Honestly, I'll admit when they made that pick, I was more high on Brevin Jordan from Miami last year, but just because I liked his pass catching capability. But John Bates, he did what I expected him to be. He was a good blocking threat from day one. He was good, good in the run game, efficiently in the run game, and he impressed me as the year went on as he got more pass opportunities. Enrique Seal-Jones went down after Logan. He had become the number one tight end or whatever, so Taylor gave him some more reps, and he had some more wiggle after the catch than I expected. I go back to that Dallas game. Obviously, it was a horrible game on Sunday Night Football, but he broke a couple tackles and got made a 20-yard catch down the sideline. Actually, got a late hit on him as well. But either way, it showed me that he has some more talent and more potential to tap into as a pass catcher.
That may have been the only play in that game that was worth talking about from Washington's perspective.
I agree, for sure.
It was a good play. It was because I think he broke a few tackles and all that, but
exactly.
And do you look at this class of tight ends as being a good class? Is there depth to this class this year?
There's 8 or 9, 10-ish guys that I think could be solid contributors in the NFL. That's a solid number. I mean, it's not when you look at the wide receiver position or other positions, the tackle position, those guys are going 20 deep in this draft where you think it could be a solid contributor. So it's in the middle for me. You can be some guys going to early day 3, 4, or 5 that I think could be at least a rotational tight end for you, tight end 2. So again, there's some pieces there, not the strongest tight end draft, but again, there's some options for Washington to look at early in day 3.
They obviously want to fortify the offensive line. So there are some linemen higher in the draft that I think they would be definitely tempted by.
Mm-hmm.
But how is it what they need first and foremost is a guard, and however they get there, they need to get a guard. That would be, let me say this, they don't need to. I know they have some guys that they like, Schweitzer and Sadiq Charles. I think Sadiq Charles is an intriguing guy still here. I wouldn't dismiss him as a possible starter, but even if they see him as a starter, they still want to build that line depth. So who are some, interior linemen later in the draft? If they don't get one in those first couple rounds, who's someone later that should be tempting for them?
Well, a guy that I like, I think he could be a 3rd round pick, but the team doesn't have a 3rd round pick. Will be Cole Strange from Chattanooga. I think they trade back. I think I really like him. He's a nasty, nasty dude. He loves to finish blocks with some attitude. Obviously, coming from a smaller school, you like that he's able to compete and have that edge to him come to the NFL. That's obviously a little higher than talking about late round gems. But another guy would be Spencer Buford from Texas San Antonio.
Yeah.
He's a little slicker for a guard at 293. Well, he's going to move to guard because kind of his better position. He was more of a tackle at UTSA, but he's versatile, can play tackle and guard. Another guy I liked. He was a good Senior Bowl week. And then going back to that Tech Lecitus Smith from Virginia Tech, 6'3", 321. Another guy, the strong run blocker. Tech ran the ball a lot in the last 2 years, and he was a guy that he was a really good puller. He was pretty solid in the pass game as well. He's probably more of a 4th and 5th round pick as well, and that's obviously where the sweet spot, it seems like this team will be looking at guard at this point. Now, they don't have a 5th round pick, but again, if they trade back, they can pick up some more options in the 5th and even the 3rd round if they trade down in the 2nd round. So there are some guys that I'm looking at. I haven't looked at as much as tackle because I think this team is solid at tackle, but hearing from you and even Brand, it seems like maybe it is a play at 11, so maybe they are looking at tackle, but as of right now, obviously, I think guard is the biggest need. Like you said, I am a Charles fan, but like you said, they need some more depth regardless.
Yeah, and I think the only way you take a tackle is if a guy that you absolutely love falls to you at 11, and then you say, you know what, and the really wild scenario that Ikem Ekwonu from North Carolina State falls to 11. It ain't happening, but let's say it does. Jonathan Allen wasn't going to 17, but let's say in the wild scenario, well, then you can take him. And if you wanted to move Cosme inside, now you have an athletic side. That's the scenario where you could see if they did something. But otherwise, you're getting a guard. And otherwise, you could get a guy that you say, well, he was a tackle here. We're going to move him to guard. That would be their thinking. I'm not saying they are. But you know what I mean? So yes. So I think there's a scenario where you could see it. But typically it's going to be build the interior line depth with some later picks.
Yeah, I agree.
That's, and so, that would be another one. Linebacker is an obvious need. And I know that Buffalo nickel package, that, getting somebody to fill that role is of high importance, but they still need linebackers and they still want to get linebackers. So who are some guys, and they're not going to, I'd be really surprised if they took 1 to 11. You never know, but the only guy there is Lloyd, and it's hard to see that. Who are some guys later that if they don't get some of those guys early in the draft that you say, here's a good fit for them?
Well, the guy that I really like, but his pro day kind of probably boosted him higher than I expected him at first, would be Leo Chanel from Wisconsin.
He's a guy. Yeah, I think you're right.
Yeah, so I had him, probably early day 3, and now he might be mid day 2, late day 2, but I still wanted to give him a shout out. I mean, he's with 6'3", 250, really good size in the middle, downhill linebacker, good versus the run. He's a guy that I think, maybe they could trade down a little bit in the second, try to pick him up in the third. Like I said, the great pro day elevated stock, had a great 40 time. And he's just a strong dude. Like, he does not get moved at all by guards or anything. So I do like that part of his game. He had 96 tackles and 8 sacks last year. And this one, the other one is going to be a later pick, and it's more of a wild card. And I'm sure fans don't want to hear it because his injury just had a pretty serious injury. And that's Damon Clark from LSU. Yeah. I like him, and he had some good film. He had a really good year last year. It's just that he unfortunately has a pretty serious back injury that he's coming off that he's going to have to deal with. Looks like he's probably going to miss most of this rookie year. But you had a great stat. I think last podcast they only had used 3 linebackers, 65 plays or whatever it was. Right. So if they're wait on a guy like that, they could have a starting linebacker in 2023 or 2024 going forward, because Clark has a lot of potential, and he's coming from a really good pedigree of LSU defense and LSU linebackers. So I'd someone that I would look at. Maybe you can get him in the 6th or 7th round based off his injury scare. But he's a guy that he's more of a 2nd or 3rd round talent to me. But if you can get him late on day 3, I think it's a steal. Yes, you're holding your breath that he's going to be fully ready to go in 2023. But I think if you're comfortable with the medical, I think it's definitely worth pulling the trigger that late in the draft.
Yeah, and even if they only use the 3 linebacker sets, it's not a ton every game. There are some games where they use it more. Some teams where they use it a lot more last year. The Eagles last year, for example, because they're going to run the ball a lot. You still need to get linebackers here because they don't have, even if you only play with 2 a lot of time, they need more guys who can play, because there was too much of a drop off when certain guys went out. And so that to me, regardless, you have to find guys for that role. Last spot, I want to talk about receivers, because this is another area. Now, I do think this goes higher in the draft, but who knows? Because every year they're like, oh, I didn't see that coming, or I thought it was going to go like this. And you know how this draft process works. There's a lot of years, like there was a year where I think they were convinced they weren't going to take a receiver in the 1st round because they were going to take somebody else. It was Ryan Kelly. They want to take him. And guess what? They traded back and took a receiver. And there was like a not going to take one there. But the guy they liked was there for them. Now it happened to be Josh Doxson. It wasn't a good pick. It wasn't just Scott McLaurin who liked him, but still. So my point is, you get surprised. But let's say they don't take one early. Who are some guys in the 3rd round and beyond who would be tempting and should be picked?
Well, a guy I really like, just because I like his position flex and versatility, is Wandel Robinson from Kentucky. I think he can be in the 3rd or 4th round. I think he was listed at 5'10" or 5'11" in Kentucky, and then the combine he measured at 5'8". So that might scare some teams off. He's 178, but he's a dynamic playmaker in space, very shifty, can make anyone miss an open field. He's a tough dude. He goes over the middle for you. I saw him get knocked out, I think, in the bowl game, and he came out a couple plays later and had the game-winning touchdown. So I love that competitive edge that he has of him. And like I said, he can play a little bit of the backfield. He has elite change the direction skills, in my opinion. But he had 104 catches and over 1,300 yards last year. And he played in Kentucky SEC, experience. He actually started his first 2 years at Nebraska before transferring to Kentucky. But he's a guy he's more of a slot receiver. And obviously, I don't know what their plans for Curtis, if he's going to play slot again now or play outside or what. But Wandel Robinson's a guy they could have. Yeah. Well, I mean, Robinson, I think he could do a little bit of both too. So, and then lastly would be Romeo Doubs from Nevada. He's a guy 6'2", 200 pound, more of that height, weight, speed kind of you're looking at. Strong hands, doesn't shy away from contact, really good awareness too, where he's out on the field, conscious of, where defenders are, especially in zone coverage. He had a good rapport with Carson Strong. And he also has special team ability. He's a guy that can play gunner. He can play as punt returner. If you're picking a guy in the 5th round or so, you want that. You want that guy that can do more because he's not going to get a lot of reps. So, he had over 2,100 yards and 21 touchdowns these last 2 years. So he has a good production there in Nevada with Carson Strong. And like I said, I just like that he can play special teams as well, because if you're picking someone late in the draft, you're going to want him to do that.
Right. What about, and the guy that I'm interested in too is Alec Pierce, because I think he's do you think he's a 3rd round guy, or do you think he'll go higher than that?
I think 3rd round's right. I think it's probably where he's going. I think he ran quicker than I expected at the combine. Obviously, his tape was good. I'm not saying it wasn't, but I didn't see that speed for him. That's only going to elevate his stock a lot too, obviously. So, I think he could go a little higher just because hear all these reports that the receivers there's going to be a run starting in that 15 to 20 range. So let's say there's somehow go 7 or 8 receivers go in the 1st round. Then of course that's going to push Pierce closer to the 2nd. Because then obviously he's in that little, group of guys like the George Pickens of the world, Sky Moore, And Christian Watson might be a little above those guys now too, but Pierce is right there. I mean, Pierce had a really good, career with Desmond Ridder. They had a really good rapport. So I think Pierce, I think he's a quality receiver, maybe high end potential of a number 2 receiver. But again, I think you're right. Probably 3rd round pick is a good safe bet for him.
Tyler, great information. Tell people where they can find you these days.
You can find me on the Roaming Around the League podcast, and you can also find my work on Hogs Haven. I put an article out every week, whether it's a mock draft or a prospect profile. So you guys can find me there. Also on Instagram at Roaming Around the League _pod.
Awesome. Thanks for coming on, man.
Thanks for having me, man.
That's it for this episode. Thanks to Logan and Tyler for joining me, and thank you, as always, for listening. I'll be back with more Logan Paulson on Friday as we discuss his mock draft and a surprising pick for Washington. We get deep with the draft, folks. Talk to you next time.